Welcome to Life Mastery Radio with Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey, the show that dives into the science of higher consciousness with inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. Join Todd, Jackie, and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. It's all right here with stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Now, here's your hosts, Todd and Jackie.
Hey, you know what I'm going to say. It's another groovy day, and that's because I make it that way. When I get up in the morning, I decide it's going to be a groovy day, and as I go through the day, things might change, something might happen, but I always think back, and it's amazing. It always turns around. Welcome to Life Mastery Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. And as always, I have my co-host with me today. Hi, Jackie Bailey. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. Summer is here. It's been very warm, but nice.
Last couple of days, I looked at the temperature gauge yesterday here in my area, and it was 93.
Yeah, it was warm. Very warm.
From very cold to very hot in a short amount of time.
And now it's about 20 degrees cooler today.
And overcast.
Yeah, a little bit.
For those of you that don't know, we're up in the Pacific Northwest and things change. It's just, but here's what I know. On the other side of that overcast, the sun is still brightly shining. So I can connect with it.
So we always say here, right? If you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes and it'll be different. Yeah.
How are things at the Speak Feed Lead project? You've had some kids that have been on some summits and sharing their messages. Anything new?
Yeah. This past week, 7 of our students were on the Week of Kindness and Gratitude Summit, giving their unique and powerful, inspiring messages to the world. So fun to have them do that. They are growing by leaps and bounds as they feel more and more confident each time they speak out. And it's exciting to watch the change, the transformation happen, right? In their countenances, they start to glow and they stand up taller and they speak out louder. And it's an amazing opportunity to watch our youth go from the quiet, shy to the idea that, hey, I have something that I can actually say about that.
I have a voice.
Delivering it. Yeah. And then that is worthy to be heard, right? Yeah. And that's the important part.
And that people want to hear it and be inspired by it. That's the cool part. And you're getting them on summits that are worldwide. And so remind us, what is the age range?
These kids are between 10 and 20. And so actually, we did make an exception this past week. One of our students was 9. And it was because he won a contest recently, a speech contest recently. And I heard his speech and I said, he has got to be on this summit. And so I asked the organizers, would it be okay if we bend the rules just a little bit and have a 9-year-old on there? And we did. And he's just fabulous. He's got such stage presence for being this tiny guy. It's really cute.
I had the pleasure of being a judge in one of the speech contests he was in, and I was amazed. It's you watch these kids, Jackie, and you just think I'm watching the future president of the United States. And they're so empowering. They have articulate ideas and they're sharing their hearts and how they view the world, and how can anybody not crawl into those ideas and process them the way they are presenting them. It is truly amazing.
You know what I've noticed that's really powerful that a lot of us adults struggle with is that authenticity situation where we think we want to say this, but maybe we always hold back a little bit because maybe we don't feel like an expert, or maybe we don't have all the answers. But our youth don't feel that way. It must be that somehow we've been told that we aren't the expert, or we really don't know everything, and that has inhibited us to some degree. The kids haven't had those experiences yet. And so when they decide, I'm going to talk on this subject, they just decide this is what I'm going to say, and they don't question it. I help them to develop it into a more powerful way to say things, but never change their message. And so they get on those stages feeling like, this is what I have to say, and I'm going to say it, and I'm not going to make any excuses for it. And that's what's really amazing, because I think a lot of adults have lost that ability.
Well, and I think our guest today is an expert. Well, she can speak to that, because I think she would call those labels. And so the youth haven't really acquired those labels yet that adults acquire. And then we live from those labels, right? We're going to talk about that on the show today.
Right, absolutely.
Let's talk about the website. Today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com, whichever one you prefer, and you can go there, and any links that we talk about will be posted right there. Later on in the week, Jackie will create a blog post about the show, and she will give us her take on it and what she took away, and just kind of a review. And when you read that, you'll definitely want to go back and rewatch the video, because then it will be on our YouTube channel and you can watch it again. So if you missed it, or you heard something really cool that you want somebody else to listen to, tell them about our YouTube channel, the website, and most of all, just tell them about this really cool show with these really cool people with these cutting edge thoughts and ideas that are being presented every week on Life Master Radio. So while you're on our website, join the newsletter. The newsletter goes out every week. It talks about who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and of course, Jackie's blog post. And while you're there, you will see both of our books. Jackie has a book. I have a book, 6 Keys to Life Mastery, and Jackie's Self-Centered Leadership, which is
as well as Heart Notes, which is a compilation book.
And Heart Notes, she wrote a Dear John letter to Lack. Goodbye, Lack.
That's right.
Get out of my
See ya.
life.
Hit the road.
You're done in my world.
That's right. I'm dating abundance now. We got a good thing going.
Now you got to write one about what it's like to date abundance.
That's right. Yeah.
A love story with abundance. There's a cool topic. Okay, you ready for the show? I think our guest is waiting patiently. She has a big smile on her face. Our guest today is Betsy Cerulo. Did I say that right?
Cerulo. Pretty close. Cerulo.
Betsy learned how to shake off the slights, disappointments, and roadblocks in building a successful business. Not just the issues related to discrimination, but with all of the gumption, wisdom, and courage it takes to create a thriving enterprise with quality, happy, engaged staff, and curation of clients that are an asset to the business. That's an interesting way to put it. The clients are an asset to the business. Of course they are. She's discerned a style of shake it off leadership that will empower any leader with the skills, wisdom, and strength to successfully create or grow a business while ensuring balance and personal fulfillment. And she also wrote a book called Shake It Off. And maybe we could cue her to hold it up. There it is.
Go.
Shake It Off Leadership.
Nice.
It's bleeping in and out, but that's okay. You can find it on Amazon, and it's also a Kindle. Hi, Betsy. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, Todd. Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited.
So
we are as well.
I was thinking about it while Jackie was telling us about her students, and I remember a chapter in your book called Find Your Voice. Now, can you imagine if you were 9 or 10 years old and you were taught that skill and then taught the skill to speak it, how different your life would have been?
Oh, my poor mother. I would have told her early on what I thought without a fear of consequences.
And that would have been a good thing.
That would have been a good thing. Yeah, it would have been a really good thing. Oh, yeah.
Because I think I would have been punished for that. But maybe.
Right.
Come to think of it, I think I always did that. I think
That's why you were a trouble kid, right?
Oh, I remember this one story. I just got to share this because it popped in my mind. My mother said that when I was being potty trained and wasn't having anything to do with it, that one day I walked in the kitchen, stood in the doorway with a big smile on my face, and just peed my pants right in front of me. It's like,
Oh, boy.
I'll show you.
Oh, it doesn't sound like, no, I'm just kidding. Betsy, you wrote this book. Maybe give us a little bit of the backstory.
Sure.
The book is intriguing. As a matter of fact, I was late for Jackie and I's pre-show because I was so enthralled with what I was reading. I looked up and it was 9:30 and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get to the pre-show. But this book is filled with your stories and your insights. And tell us about that.
I just wanted to put in writing and to be able to share with the up and coming generations and or women or people of underserved communities that are at a point in their lives where older and want to make some kind of important change. You know, like how sometimes you just need someone to just push it over that edge and say it's okay. So I felt that I had some past experiences that would be valuable and also part of my legacy as a leader to say, here's a roadmap that I want to share that worked for me. It may not work for everyone, but I think when I read certain books, I can resonate with people's journeys and say, oh, wow, I'm not the only one that feels that way.
Well, I picked up from your book that was probably your most inspiring thing, is to get other people to realize that there's wisdom in our stories. And if we can review, both of you and I are friends of Bill. We'll just say it like that. There goes our anonymity, but that's okay. I dig it. And there's nothing more powerful than doing a true fourth step. And I was thinking about that when I was reading your book, is that looking back at our past and kind of dissecting it and looking at it and gaining those nuggets of wisdom from that help us in our lives from this point forward.
Yes. Yeah. And some people want to share the stories and some people don't. It's really a matter of choice at a convenient time in this world. But, choice is really important. And I don't fault people if they don't want to share stories, if they want to keep certain things private. I mean, there's certainly things in my life that are still and will remain private for me. And there's times that certain phases and pieces of my story could really resonate for someone else. And I wanted to put it out there. I didn't want to put out a book where everything was perfect and flowers and sunshine. And I wanted to be able to put in some of the difficult pieces that helped me to get to that joy. Because oftentimes we go through the darkness to get to the light. So I wanted to be honest about it.
Well, you've alluded a little bit then to this relationship you had with your mom. Is that part of the lessons that you learned there and the way that?
Yeah. And my mom is still alive. She's 98. I actually talked to her this morning.
Wow.
And she did the best that she knew how with what she had. And my dad died suddenly when I was 6, and she was left with 5 of us, ranging from me at 6 to my sister at 21 and 3 brothers in between, and everyone was kind of giving her a run for the money at different points. So, looking back, and I've had conversations with her about some of the demands that she had, and she was pretty upfront. I was pretty traditional and I felt comfortable in those traditions. And, but she has certainly come full circle, and I'm grateful for that. That is this stage in her life, she's just an opening for acceptance. Now, of course, she does have dementia. But she knows who we all are. She just can't remember the things that got her upset or the things, the judgments that she was attached to. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. So it can be a blessing that way.
Yes.
I know that Alzheimer's, my mother had Alzheimer's as well. And she had it probably for a few years before she was actually diagnosed, and then lived about 10 years or so with it. And my mom, unlike your mom, was not a nice person. She she was a pretty selfish individual, and she had made a lot of mistakes during her life. And so when she started to forget those things, I actually saw this as a blessing.
Yes.
That if anybody needed to forget the sadness of her life, it was my mom. And so I believe this disease perhaps came upon her because it was going to be a blessing in her last days, because she was the nicest person you'd ever want to meet in the last few days of her life. She didn't know who I was, but she just loved to see me. And that was far different from the person that she actually was in her youth. So there are some blessings that come with those little tragedies of disease and illnesses.
Yes.
But wish the best for your mom, of course.
Yeah,
And for
thank you. Thank you. And, it also allowed me the space for more forgiveness. I just got really used to forgiving my mother over the years for some of the things that occurred. And it certainly made me stronger. So, and I think probably, Jackie, for you too, when you hear stories of other women talk about their moms at different journeys, some stories are so shattering when I read them. And I think to myself, okay, God, she was a pain in the neck. She did things I wish she didn't do, but I'm grateful that that's the story that I get to tell.
Right.
I love what you say in your book about that. And I think you say, we all have flaws, but flaws mixed with our gifts are the gift. Maybe speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. For those that are willing to listen and are willing to do the inner work for change, we can take some of these things that were, at some point in our life, a dark cloud, and then find that sunshine above the clouds, because we all have it. It's really just a question of when we want to reach in and do the work to get past it, because we all have wounds. We all have things that have harmed us and brought us to tears at different points in our lives. And we can either be defined by those labels, or we can create new experiences and new joys. And at this stage in my life, I want it to be joyful, and that's really the work that I do, is to stay on that path as much as I can. I'm not perfect about it, but as much as I can.
Yeah, well, if it were a perfect world, we wouldn't be here, right?
Yeah, I guess so. We wouldn't be writing these books with these really good stories.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about labels. You have a whole chapter on it, I believe. And we talked a little bit about it in the beginning with the kids, right?
Yeah.
When these kids come into the world and they're growing up, they don't have these labels yet, but somehow we acquire them. And as adults, we wear them. We buy into them. We put them up on our wall.
We do. And, I'm just really grateful for the younger generation now, because I believe that generation is going to get a handle on a lot of the strife that's in the world right now. Sadly for them, like, my granddaughters are going to have to fight for the same things that we fought for 50 years ago. With the recent overturning of Roe v. Wade. So now the younger kids have to fight for things over again. But maybe what that means is we have to get stronger and maybe wiser or more thorough on how we fight some of these battles. Or maybe it's the younger kids that's going to find a way for people to collaborate more and listen more, because there has to be ways that everybody gets what they need without it having to be fight. Why can't we just give and accept
and
people
talk about it, right?
Right. And talk about it. Like, I don't like to get into mega heated debates, and some people would like to, really thrive on the screaming and the shouting. That doesn't do it for me when people talk like we call them the talking heads, when they just talk and no listening.
And try and overpower you with their thoughts and
That's
ideas.
to me, that's harmful. That's harmful to the soul. So if you can get different people at the table with different views and kind of understand, well, why do you see it that way? And okay, why do you see it that way? Okay, I can understand that. Okay, so then how can we have everybody win here? Amazing what we could accomplish if we could get to that point.
We've got to find the common ground, right?
Yes.
And there is common ground.
And everything.
You might have to dig a little deep, but it's there.
Yeah.
We just have to find it. And then once we find that, now we can begin to understand each other.
Right.
I was going to say that you and Todd and I, we all know that we are who we are today because of the challenges that we faced in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore our children are not going to be immune from that. Our grandchildren and children not. And so even though times may look scary, or we might think, oh my gosh, they've got this fight on their hands. Well, it might be a good thing because it's those challenges that we've all grown from to be the people that we are. And therefore they've got to face similar things. And that might be their challenge.
Yeah.
And so that's hopefully it's going to shape, like you say, shape our young people into even more powerful human beings.
Yeah. And I think too, it might be able to build that bridge between the various generations where people will listen to each other, because I certainly know that there are people in the baby boomer generation that really have no interest in what the millennials or the Gen Xers, the Gen Zers have to say. And I think to myself, are you kidding me? Their approach comes from a place of, such wisdom, and it may not be in the number of years on the planet, but it's almost like a clean slate, and we're carrying all this baggage.
Yeah, and innocence.
Right. And you also have some of the younger generation will think, well, what does that person has old views, and yes, there are some of us in our generation that do, but I just think that there is so much wisdom between the generations. And if you could just, push aside the noise in every generation and just bring together the people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and find that compromise, then we have a chance on the future.
Well, I agree with you, Betsy. And I think one of the real advantages that the kids coming to our planet today have is the spiritual connection to something. They are coming with that spiritual connection. And if we're not careful, we're going to normalize that out of them, right?
Indigo children.
Indigo children. Yeah, you're right. That's what they're calling them. And so that's the value they have to give us, is we've in a lot of ways lost this connection. We've learned to be strong and stand up for ourselves and not necessarily feel the gratitude for all the people that helped us get there and for the spiritual source that has done that. But these kids know it, they feel it. They're coming empathically into this world, and we've got to rely on them for that talent that they're coming in with that we maybe have lost, helping us get back in touch with it. So
absolutely. And we have an obligation to teach the younger generations and to really bring up, and I'm going to say the women, because I am a woman and I know what it's like to have been discriminated in business heavily. We have an obligation to really give the younger women the tools to emerge in a really stronger place, so they can eventually have equality, equity. I look at the Lilly Ledbetter Act. Well, we haven't done too well with that. So, we still don't have equal pay the way it should be. So there's a lot more work that needs to be done. I'll even look at the recent Supreme Court decisions. There's just so much more work that needs to be done that shouldn't rely on a group of individuals to make those decisions. So we have to get more present with coming to the table and saying, here's what we need to do. And I think we have to teach the younger generations, don't get complacent, because that's why we're in some of the trouble that we are now. People that say, some people that say, well, why bother vote? No one, it's not going to matter. Yeah, it does.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And I think that's what that taught us this week, right? Is now it's going back to the hands of the people. Yes. And the people now are going to be able to, through electoral process, vote the right leaders in that they feel match most completely
Mhm.
their own value system.
Right.
And so that's
Right.
that's the good news from that.
And you know, the tough part, or I should say the really important thing, is what we have to teach all the generations is people have certain values, and people may not agree with what those each other's values are, but again, we have to be able to identify people in leadership that know how to hear,
Articulate it.
yeah, and to be able, not be afraid to look for that compromise, because I think a lot of times in leadership, people are being impacted by what their constituents or where the money trail is.
Where the money is.
Yeah, really, where the money is, whether or not they agree with where the money came from. I just believe that there's other ways that we can do this. And sometimes I get asked, well, why don't you go into politics? It is a dirty job.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think
Yeah.
probably like the three of us, I think we're having greater impact at the grassroots level.
Well, influence is my favorite word when it comes to leadership, because I feel like if you had to boil leadership down to one word, it would be influence, because everything we do, everything we say influences another human being. But it doesn't always have to, we want to have good influence when we put it out there in the world, but there is also influential sources, as you say, in politics and leadership that aren't so great.
No.
And so we have to be careful to be positive influencers ourselves, but we also have to be careful about who's influencing us.
Yes.
Right? So that we aren't making decisions that go against who we are.
Yeah.
I think that's the hardest part in leadership, don't you? Is to really remain true to ourselves,
Yeah.
try to make everybody else happy, especially
Right.
if you have employees. You've got to make sure that they've got everything they need to be as successful, because that's going to make you more successful. And sometimes you get labels, right?
Yes.
You're doing your best.
Yes.
And you're going through what you believe is the right thing to do, but you're getting labeled. People have told me that I'm so intimidating, and I think, what? How can I be intimidating?
Because you're speaking your mind.
Maybe so. So, what are some of the labels you've been given throughout your life, Betsy, that you've been able to stomp on and crush?
Well, the obvious is a woman, and that's ongoing even at this stage in my career. But I certainly have more wisdom and the confidence to just say, oh no, that doesn't work. Shush that noise over there, and push other people to the front of the line. Being LGBT has certainly been an interesting label throughout my career, a label that had to be kept quiet. And really, it's been over the past 10 years that I've pushed my company fully out into the world as an LGBT certified and owned company. And it's only done great things for us. So even when I speak on panels, or if I've done some speaking for the federal government, I am now very upfront of that label and really proud of it. So I have had periodically, if I've been on, of course, I haven't really been on the in-person panels in a while, but when I've been on the in-person panels, and I've had some colleagues in the audience who are also LGBT, and when I bring that up, there'll be like some kind of gasp in the audience, and they'll be sitting close to that person, and they'll just like hit them and say, cut it out.
Yeah.
So, it's, I think, that's a label I'm so proud of. I'm proud to be a woman, and I could go down. We all have the labels, I'm Caucasian. I'm at a point in life where utilizing that label to influence and to be an interruption for the discrimination that's going on out in the world is so important. So important. Just like with certain rights for women, we need our male counterparts to be strong allies for us. So that's where you work together.
Right. So do you think things have gotten easier? In the LGBT community, then, have those labels maybe don't mean the same as they did 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago?
In some
do you feel like we're making progress?
Yes, I do. And then all of a sudden I'll feel like we're being called out again. Obviously, sadly, that was brought up for same-sex marriage rights with the overturning of Roe v. Wade. People don't realize some of the comments that they make that are really harmful. There are so many wonderful people out there in the LGBTQ community that all we want to do is be with who we love, and we build our families around that love. So why should that be in question when really the foundation of that is love? I mean, it seems pretty obvious to me, but some people want to hold on to their hate and their fear.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
And hold back that compassion and empathy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And an understanding of the differences. That's what we
Yes.
should be celebrating, is the differences, not the you're not like me, so I don't like you.
Right. Correct. And I think a lot of times for people, it's this fear of not understanding. So you would rather just stay over on the side where you feel comfortable. Now, we all like comfort, but our community still has more to do. You know, we definitely have more work to do. We have to continuously protect our rights. And also within our community, we need to make sure that there's a fair distribution of opportunity, because just like outside of the LGBTQ community, you still have the discrepancies or the inequities between the men and women, and that has to stop. That has to stop across the board in every diverse group. So I'm obviously pretty vocal about that.
Well, you know, that's how we bring it into the conscious awareness of all. If not, if it's back in the back corner or in the closet, then a lot of people don't get those viewpoints and then have the ability to process it themselves to see. That's just my take on it anyway.
Yeah. And I can tell you that there are people in the LGBTQ community that are in federal government or the corporate space that have also kind of gone back into the closet, where they may not have all the same pictures out, or they may be a little quieter. Because here's the truth. My company is a government contractor. With the change of any administration, if you have a Republican in the White House, all the TVs, the flat screen TVs in every federal agency has Fox News. When you have a Democratic president, they all have CNN or whatever Democratic
I
news.
Never thought about that.
It is, because when I would go visit my customers and I'd be like, how about we not have anything up on the TV? You know, it's like, come on. But people are afraid, and it should not be that way.
Well, so what do you suggest then? Because we have, as human beings, we have this innate desire to belong to a group. That we all feel that we need a connection to a community, right? And so we glob onto different communities and different phases of our lives. Is that a good thing, or is it a bad thing? Or how, you know, if it's a bad thing, how do you encourage someone to go into a different community that's a little bit better for them? I mean, this is just a strange scenario, because it's something that we all need.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing is that a lot of those communities now are political type organizations, or
polarized,
because so many people have stepped away from the religious community that I was brought up in, and many in my generation were brought up in. So when we lose one community, we try to find another one. So what do you think about that? Is it good or bad? And how does that influence leadership?
Well, the best answer is everything in moderation. And I know that also takes a lot of work to do. I can say on the business side, I belong to, besides being the co-founder of the Maryland LGBT Chamber of Commerce and the Maryland LGBT Foundation, the parent organization is the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, NGLCC.org. So when I go to those annual conferences, which aside from COVID, draw over 1,000 people, mostly LGBT, and a lot of our allies, both in the corporate space and the federal space, there is this sense of freedom that I experience that I don't experience at the other conferences, because I don't have to monitor what I share and say about my family or my choices. It's just, I feel totally in a space of equality, like I have never felt in a business group before. Even more
it's the freedom to speak without worrying about the label.
Yes, absolutely, saying, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I feel that even more when I go to conferences that are for women business owners, because there are people there that will judge, or there will be women there that may not be as supportive of your success because they want the success. It's like, get over it. We're
Unfortunately, there is competition among women, isn't there?
Yes. And it's like, okay, we're supposed to be on the same team here.
Right.
What's the problem? But I feel total, complete acceptance when I go to that conference. And this year it's in Las Vegas in the beginning of August. Fabulous conference. Everybody is welcome. Perfect.
Nice.
Maybe talk to us a little bit. You have a couple chapters in your book that highlight some of your daily practices, and let's talk a little bit about how important that is. I get the feeling that our youth and the younger generations are moving away from something that gives them peace and solace, right? And the ability to have faith and to really have something to rely on other than themselves or another human being to give them guidance.
Well, prayer is really important to me, but I think that too, for the younger generations, they haven't listened to all the noise as much as we've done. So we get to a point where we've got to silence it. So I think, the younger generation,
That's a great way
some of them have that. And I'm sure that they will be getting to that point where they're going to need.
Well, they're exposed to so much noise and so many different varying viewpoints with the technology and
information. It's
other
overload.
people's thoughts, other people's impressions with their videos and all of that's being crammed in. It's just amazing.
Right. And social media, the younger generation, well, it's not just the younger generation, but people look on social media and they think, well, they got it all going on. What's wrong with me? And, I know on social media, I would rather post more positive things. I didn't quite accomplish that this weekend because of some of my thoughts of some changes out in the world. But for the most part, I rather portray happiness because it just feels better. But I think some people will look at different postings like, oh, what am I doing wrong? Or I have a bad life. And I just think there needs to be more guidance around social media where it's surface. You've got to find practices and train yourself to dig deep, because when you dig deep and you look beyond of what's on top, that's where you see and you hear both the challenges and the wisdom. So
Todd, we lost Todd. He says he lost power.
Oh no.
He lost power, so he's going to try to get back on. But in the meantime, it's you and me, girl.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
So I didn't get a chance to peruse your book too much. I apologize for that.
Okay.
But I want to understand what shake it off means and how does that pertain to leadership? So can you lead us down that road a little bit?
Sure. Shake it off was a term that I heard from my high school coaches. You're on the field, you're on the court, something doesn't go right, shake it off. And then, in a nanosecond, you got to fix it and do better. And I carried that with me over the years. If something would bother me, it would be, okay, just shake it off. And the shake it off would, and where it came to leadership, it's not where I would shake it off and sweep it under the rug. I would shake it off, regroup, and then I got to get back in the ring, if you will. You can't give up the fight. And sometimes in business, it feels like it's the fight for the goal, the fight for whatever you're wanting to change or you're wanting to, the solution you need. But if I keep hanging on to the things and not shaking them off, it just makes for a very cumbersome type of leadership. And I used to operate that way in my earlier years, but shake it off serves me well.
Yeah. I know that if we dwell in our failures, right? If we dwell in our mistakes, we do start to label ourselves, right?
Yes.
As an idiot or a failure or,
Yeah, not good enough.
together,
And
not
women,
good enough, that kind
we're
of
good
thing.
at that as women, you know?
Oh,
We've
yeah,
kind
we're
of been
real good at that.
programmed. We've been programmed. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So you're suggesting then that it's a matter of not wallowing in the self-pity with the pity party
Correct.
that we can
Correct.
often throw for ourselves, but saying, okay, so that didn't turn out as well as I thought.
No.
No big deal. I'm going to keep moving forward and I'll learn lessons from that, but I'm not going to make it
Mm-hmm.
negative for who I am. I'm going to just keep moving forward. So that's what shake it off means.
Correct. And, you know, and we do beat ourselves up. I do. I do it less now, or I'll, you know, like, oh, okay, done. Let's move on. So it's not that I'm just kind of moving along with, oh, it's all going to be fine. Sometimes it just ain't going to be fine.
Yeah.
But you got to clean out the cobwebs to be able to hear and listen for the solutions. And that listening for me starts with my grounding processes. So I pray in the morning. You know, I have, before my feet hit the floor, I have my litany of what I'm grateful for, what I'm praying for, and the guidance that I need before I get out of bed. So that's important to me. I've learned, you know, in the morning I do yoga, I stretch, because I've just has to have my body ready for the day. And when you're sitting or standing behind a computer, well, you're not exactly moving all the parts of your body all the time.
Right. Yeah.
So I've got to take care of what I've been given, and that's important to me. So those kind of practices, I always hope that the younger generations will develop that, because I didn't really firmly develop those until I got older. And I think my trajectory could have been different if I had more grounding early on, but I have it now, and that's all that matters.
Well, and I'm impressed with that. I think it's wise that you realize that when you first wake up in the morning is usually the time when those old patterns of negative thoughts are going to start filling your head, unless you replace them with something pretty quickly, right? And so meditation or prayer, yoga, which also is another way to meditate or get clear with all of your energy, vibration, and so forth. I think those are great ways to start the day, because it puts us into a different pattern than we might be into as far as our thoughts and energy go. So then can you share with us a story of a time when you actually were able to kind of shake off a situation that maybe brought you low, brought you some unhappiness, and how you were able to deal with that?
Yes.
Is there a story you could share?
Yes. So I had some challenges in my company, and I had a toxic business relationship within the company. And there got to a point where, you know, it served the organization. And then there got to a point where it didn't. And I had to make some tough choices. It took me too long to make the choices, but once I did, it was like a huge weight was lifted, not only off myself, but off the organization. And it took me a while to shake it off, because I was in that place where I am the CEO. I should have made that change sooner. But my lessons were there. And as a result of those lessons and finally shaking it off, I was able to bring a more fuller leadership style to the company and be able to let in more wisdom from the people that are part of the company, and welcome back past employees that were there during those tough times that have now come back. So it took a long time, and it took a lot of inner work for that. But that was on my path, and I had to honor it.
Yeah. Is it hard for you to bring in other people and listen to their ideas as you're trying to solve a problem, or do you find that you want to try to solve it yourself?
No, I like to listen to other people's perspective. I have people in the company from different generations, so it's amazing that we all honor our different ages.
That's nice.
And kind of throw it in. I mean, there's a time when you can't have consensus, because if you get everybody involved, it's not a good thing. But the times that we do have certain situations and we get the majority of the team involved, it's amazing the ideas that come out of that. And I think that's, in a small company, it's a good thing because people get to come to the table as though they were in at a conference table in a big corporation. So in a small business, if you can get a lot of people or, a group involved, they get to really see that change act very quickly that takes sometimes years to be seen in a large corporation.
Can you tell us about your business, Betsy? Welcome back, Todd. Can you tell us what your business is? I'm not sure that we talked about that yet.
No, well, my company, AdNet AccountNet, is a professional staffing and executive search firm. So we're a government contractor, and we've been in business since 1990. And we do a lot of work in supplying subject matter experts in, I'll say right now, we're doing a lot of work in EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity, as well as reasonable accommodations. These are the people that support employees who are blind or deaf and provide them the work support to get their job done. And we do work in accounting and finance and human resources. And then we have some other secondary type of offerings, but it's at one time it was considered a, old-fashioned employment agency, but now it's grown into be more management consulting and more niche-oriented work.
I would call that person a headhunter. No.
I am. I will hunt your head if you let me.
So that brings a curious question in today's world. Are you noticing, is there more people than jobs, or is there more jobs than people?
There seems to be more jobs than people. I know we're hearing a lot about the Great Resignation, but that Great Resignation is not happening in every industry. Right. So it's always been a challenge to find really good people, because if it wasn't, companies like mine would not be needed.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think anymore, though, a lot of corporations and businesses rely on companies like yours rather than doing the hunting themselves, right?
Yes, correct.
Here's my requirements. Find me somebody. I would rather give you the money for that effort than I would pay somebody in my own organization and then not end up with the cream of the crop.
Right. And sometimes those efforts, they have to be done together because of whatever the urgency is for the hiring and the growth of that corporation. So, corporations come to us. We do a great deal of business in the federal government. So, I'm excited about the work that we do in the federal space, because I feel like the nature of a lot of the contracts that we pursue have a very meaningful aspect to them. And I am very intentional about that, because if I'm going to go and ask myself to turn myself inside out to write and submit proposals, and then turn around when we win and ask my employees to turn themselves inside out to staff it, it's a benefit when we say, oh, our contract is doing this. Gee, well, that feels good to be able to tell people and have them attracted to come work for us.
Right.
Or be on your list anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool.
And is this nationwide, or is this just in?
It is nationwide. Yes.
Okay.
We started to do more work nationwide, and then COVID just forced us. And it was really, it was one of those positive silver linings that came from a terrible time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Seen lots of those.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my goodness, ladies, we just have about 10 minutes left. And there was one part of your book, Betsy, that I thought was really cool. And I think it is a really cool thought. And we'll see if we can inspire others. But you said you talked about the 50s and how enlightening those were for you. I know for me, I couldn't wait to turn 50. And when I turned 50, it was like the whole world was opening up, and I was really excited. I even went out and bought a Harley Davidson on my 50th birthday.
Wow. I would love that. And I'll probably end up just, having a Vespa someday. No Harley, maybe a Vespa.
But the 50s are really enlightening. I mean,
it's liberating. It's liberating.
Well, is it because you don't care about the labels any longer? It's like,
No,
hey, throw at
it's
me
like-
what you want. I don't care.
That's right. I've earned my place. I have been on this planet for half a century and I've earned my white hair. You know,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that everything that would come out of my mouth or someone's mouth who are in their 50s is right or in terms of is the exact thing, but I think we just this weight comes off of our shoulders that we get to be more of who we are.
Exactly.
So
It was like,
I embraced it.
yeah, I thought it was cool. And yet I have friends and, you know, it was a depressing thing for them to turn
Mhm.
50. And it was like, oh my gosh, well, I haven't done all these things. Well, this is my second wind. Well,
Yeah.
now I think you and I are pretty close to the same age. And so we're on our second wind.
Yes. I just turned that second wind. But I do want to share, recently I read a book, and I have that book here too, From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks.
Huh.
So he talks about that shift from fluid wisdom or fluid intelligence, which is task oriented, that typically is when we're younger, and then how to make the shift over to the crystallized wisdom, liquidity, that's more wisdom driven.
Mhm.
And more strategic and big picture driven. And I found that book to be absolutely wonderful, especially for someone that thinks, oh, I've hit this age, you might as well put me out to pasture. This girl ain't going out to anybody's pasture until she is ready.
You and I
Yeah.
are cut from the same rug, because you talk about, I think I heard some podcasts that you did where it was like, I am not even close to retiring. I don't know what it would be. I can't even imagine, Betsy, what it would be like to be retired. There's stuff to do.
There's more books to write. There's more things to help change, and there's more people to teach. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh my
Well, how
goodness.
can people find you, Betsy? If they want to learn more about your business or to find your book, where would they look?
Twofold. For Shake It Off Leadership, if you go to betsycerulo.com, that will talk more about the book. And it also has a free download for a
Your
workbook.
workbook. Yeah, we didn't even
a
talk about
workbook. You might want to check that out, because there's some really valuable exercises that you can do. As far as AdNet, if you go to adnetp3.com, that talks more about our company and what we do. So you can reach me quick. But you know what? People can find me on either website. So I'm there. I'm here.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome.
The
Thank you
links
so
will
much.
be in Jackie's newsletter, and they are on today's show page at www.lifemasteryradio.net. Go check it out. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out Betsy's link. Anything we're missing, Betsy? Is there anything else that you would like to share with the? I sure hope that you will come back on Life Mastery Radio, because I think there is a whole lot of stuff that we could talk about.
I would love to. Feel free to reach out to me anytime, and would love to have more conversation. But I think we've covered a lot. There's always more to talk about. I think my closing is just for people to be present and involved to make change in this world. And please go vote in November, or whatever primaries are in your state. Vote and be kinder to people, even if they have a view that you may not agree with. Find it in your heart to be kindness, because that may get us to where we need to go.
Thank you for that. Yes.
I think something else that comes out of this too, and it's something that I did, is write a timeline of your life. You know what I did? I took a piece of paper and I just wrote events that occurred in my life, and then I just set that piece of paper aside, and as I thought or relived a memory, I could go and put that in that timeline. And it took about a year. I mean, it was just a piece of paper hanging around, but there is so much wisdom in that. It is amazing what you can glean from your past experiences.
Yeah. And vision boards. I pull mine out every so often. I think, oh, I'm so glad I stuck with that. So something as simple as a vision board is valuable to do too.
I have a friend that's really into vision boards, and she came to me one day and she just got her hair cut, and she said, I just despise this haircut. It's just, I can't imagine that guy cut my hair. And then she went home and she called me. She says, Todd, the lady on my vision board has the same haircut.
There you go.
It was pretty funny. But that's the way it works.
Yep.
That's funny.
Thank you so much for showing up as you, Betsy.
Thank you.
I think this has been an absolute blast, and I think we created some really cool content. Jackie, any takeaways? We got about 2 minutes.
Thank you, Betsy. I love your story. I love the ideas in your book. I'm going to take a look at that workbook as well, because we do need to rid ourselves of the labels, and we also need to give ourselves some labels of who we really are. I have someone who encouraged me last week to write down some I am statements about myself. I think we could benefit by all doing that.
Capital I, capital A. I am.
Yes,
Anything
I am.
That's truth.
Those are the good labels.
And her workbook, I just want to remind everybody that workbook is a free PDF that you can download and start working with. So go check it out. The link's on lifemasteryradio.net. It will be in Jackie's newsletter. Sign up for that newsletter, my folks. That's about all we have for today. Check out Jackie. Yeah, check out Jackie, the
Speakfeedly.org.
And Betsy. And lastly, please, please, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. Bye-bye for now.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Betsy.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to Life Mastery Radio. Join Todd Allen and Jackie Bailey and their guests of leading authors, speakers, coaches, and entrepreneurs weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific. Learn to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery through stories and messages to support your well-being and most evocative dreams. Visit their website, www.lifemasteryradio.com. Join their mailing list and be notified about upcoming guests. That's lifemasteryradio.com.